Hello. I want to say welcome to everybody who's going to be seeing this. This is Tesoro's a Tesoro debut. This show is called Nuance, and this is 60 minutes of an artist being able to talk about their process, maybe performing, answering questions if there are any out there. This is the sort of a chance that artists, poets especially, don't really get a chance for to talk about how it is they create the magic that they create. We are incredibly fortunate to have for our debut the author of Come Egypt, Teresa Gallion, and she is going to share with you all of her wit, all of her warmth, all of her wisdom for the next 60 minutes. Teresa, welcome and thank you. This debut of Tesoro's Nuance.
Thank you so much. I am honored to be the inaugural person to be participating in the Nuance program. And what I'm going to be doing this evening is giving an overall presentation on my brand new book that just dropped in March called Come Egypt. So I'm going to start out talking a little bit about process and how this book evolved. And in between, I will be reading some poetry. And if anyone has questions, I'll be happy to address them. I went to Egypt in May of 2022, and I was there for 2 full weeks, just as it was beginning to get hot. I was traveling with a tour group of 11 other people, so there were 12 of us all together. And it was the most magnificent group I had been with in all my travels, and we bonded so well together. But what was even more amazing was the impact that Egypt had on me. And it was so strong, and I felt that country so strong in what I was seeing that I started writing. And I have spent the last couple of years writing, uh, influenced by what I felt and what I saw on my tour of Egypt. So what I thought I would do is read my the preface to my book, which is really relatively short, and it would give you an idea of how this whole process evolved. The journey to Egypt was a life-changing experience. Flashbacks floating down the Nile River embraced me with memories bubbling in the solitude of a river's flow. With each day, I was caught in the moment of a revelation of connection through time and space. My muse challenged me to capture my visions and wrap words around what I was seeing, feeling, and hearing throughout the landscape that tickled and teased my soul. I felt a wave of redemption bathe my soul in the light of humility and the blessing of an eagle's vision. This collection rides on the waves of past lives that grab me in the reverent walks through the temples and tombs of a regal civilization and my connection to that landscape and people of that era. This was a growth opportunity on my personal journey into a window of time. The stories on the walls gave me lights of understanding to move my learning curve forward. Recognition that every encounter is an opportunity to expand our consciousness is a gift. Enlightenment comes in subtle ways. Every breath, every step, every thought, every utterance from the temple and tomb walls sent messages to me. At every moment, I was ready to receive the voice of ancient tongues. I float in gratitude for the exposure of this ancient history that weighed heavily on my heartstrings. I felt the load of a civilization rising from the sand in my dreams and meditations across a 2 week time span of now that floated back 4,000 plus years. My muse is still singing and dancing to the unveiled lyrics of ancient Egypt. The power of spirit to call us out is available to all souls. Each of us is a messenger and a seeker on different pathways to our destination. Our experiences and reactions are individually different. These differences are tools for learning and growth when we embrace the writing of others. I hope you will be moved by the intensity of my time travel, shape shifting between the land of Egypt and my beloved New Mexico home. And that essentially captures the essence of what got me going in writing on about Egypt because it hit me so hard when I was walking in and out of all the temples and tombs. Uh, I was just amazed and in awe, and my muse just wanted to write and try to express what I was seeing and feeling because it was so intense when you think about the fact that here you have these temples and tombs that have been buried for 3 and 4,000 years in sand, and all of a sudden they arise almost in perfect tact. It was amazing. I'm going to start out by reading a few poems, and in between, if anyone has questions, I'll be happy to answer them. The first section is called Captured Moments, and I'm going to do something that I don't normally do since I have the time, and that is talk a little bit about what uh, stimulate the particular piece that I'm reading, because each one was stimulated by something that was happening during my tour. I'm going to start with a piece that's called Brief Exposure, and I wrote this piece when I was uh, slightly sitting back in the bed on the Egyptian yacht that we stayed on for 5 nights. And from that yacht, we had a large window, and you could look out and literally see the sun slowly setting over the Nile River. And this is a piece I wrote. Brief exposure. The edge of evening is the last exhale of the sun on the horizon. Orange cream lays across the mountain peaks. My eyes slant upward to gaze at natural light. Illusions of fire and ice waver in the twilight. A frost-bitten wind staggers to sleep. The stars slowly roll out on black velvet. Happy yawns open wide, and my eyes fold in slumber. That is in the section called Captured Moments. And I'm going to read 2 or 3 more pieces from that section because each one is a special moment that was captured as I was visiting different sites around the country. Egyptian moment. Handsome, young, 21st century Egyptian lad greets us at the camel auction, stares with an amused smile at the alien invasion of his land of birth. We wave and wink at young innocence as our auction experience ends with the sale of many camels. He chases us on his donkey as we bounce in a truck bed with makeshift seats down a dusty road, waving in front of his angelic smile. What will you be, pretty brown boy? What will you be when you become a man? One of the days that we were sailing down the river, we sailed across to the tomb of Isis, which is called the Temple of Philae. And we had a Nubian who was riding with us and explaining things that were happening. And I had to write about him because he was so beautiful. And it's called Nubian Prince. A black velvet Nubian walks into my line of sight. I want to kiss his subtle lips and delicately blended cheeks. I look into his eyes and say, "You are beautiful." I ask the translator to tell him. His smile rains gratitude on my heart as I float in the ecstasy of the blue Nile River. My smile begins to glow as his radiates. I bathe in the wonder of how Black born again from the tombs of 1,000 years is so beautiful. And I know at the next level, I am blessed with the gaze of a Nubian prince. Pinch me, please. My body is begging for a reality check. My soul is out of control. On one of the days of our adventure on this tour, we took a horse and buggy ride to get to uh, the temple of Canaan, which was in the village of Esna. And it's a small city, but very, very crowded. The streets were, and they were crowded with all types of transport, horses, buggies, donkeys, um, tuk-tuks, you name it, little buses, minivans, the whole works. And they were all using the same road. And it was amazing watching. And no one got killed in the process. So this is called Horse and Buggy Ride. A minaret in the village of Esna sounds the call to prayer. I ride a buggy through the crowded streets to the temple of Canaan. A bustling crowd of humanity from diverse cultures and nations are going in the same direction, chasing the wind and waves of time. We want to see the magnificence of temples rising from the sand, the intrigue of nature's power to hold beauty and stories after a few thousand treks around the sun. The locals speed past in variable modes of transport, doing their daily tasks. Some seek out the excited tourists to loosen some change from their pockets. And I'm going to read one more from this section. It's called Egyptian Yacht, and which riding on an Egyptian yacht down the river was just the most magnificent, amazing, and luxurious experience I've ever had. This piece is called Egyptian Yacht. Peace flows over me like a soothing melody. My heart expands and love floods my bones. Ecstasy makes me float like a goddess. I cannot pull the words from my mouth to capture the feelings invading my brain. Perhaps silence is the best response as I gaze at morning's light streaking across the Nile River. We float on an Egyptian yacht. The Aida is forever imprinted on our hearts. It gently carries us on this majestic river. We are all at peace, savoring the magic and the quiet float on a powerful waterway that transports the weight of humanity downstream. The inner pictures of my soul are not ready to release. They tease me with no mercy. I yield and bend my knees on this sacred deck in praise of this river. Living in the moment is the key. I savor the endless love flowing through this morning and hold my robust coffee close to the chest. A lot of times when I was going to visit various sites, the temples and tombs throughout this tour, I felt like I was going back in time, like I had been there before and had been a part of some of what was happening and what I was seeing, because I could feel the intense energy when I would be walking into the tombs and temples. And I have a section in my book called Shape Shifting Between Time and Space, where I go back and forth between being in my home in New Mexico or in Colorado and being on the Nile River or going within temples and tombs and throughout. So the first piece I want to read in that section is called Reserve Space. The back end of the axe beats stakes into the ground to hold my tent in place next to the river. Still, it is not secure. The wind may take it away. I do not want to be held in place like this tent. I want to swim deep and rise like a phoenix, reborn as goddess of this river, singing in the choir of its flow. I feel the heaviness of 1,000 years dragging me in my contemplative state. I move forward by divine grace on the Nile River and flood the landscape to renew the earth. Now I float in the Arkansas River that gives pleasure to ungrateful humans. For a moment, I still feel the blue Nile massaging all my senses. I throw a kiss of gratitude at two rivers and hold space in my heart. I inhale the vigorous flow of the Arkansas River and feel the Nile running through my veins. The next piece is called The River Still Flows. My walking meditation draws me to the spirit of the Rio Grande, soothing in the morning light. I feel regal after the benediction of an Egyptian massage. No words to adequately describe the ancient hold of energy of temple ruins and tombs, unearthed in all their glory, sitting here beside the river. I am remarkably blessed here in the Bosque with a wave of New Mexico love light surrounding me. I gaze the eloquence of delightful cottonwood as it sings in green lyrics all around the river and me. I could shout my gratitude over and over again, and that would not be sufficient to express my joy to be home in my beloved New Mexico, reflecting on my journey. I touch the Rio Grande, step out of my body into the Nile River. I feel the weight of 4,000 years speak to me in tongues I can understand when it tells me I am still here. Mankind may pollute and abuse me, cause a temporary flu, cannot destroy me. I will be here when all the pathetic souls of earth leave the planet, for I am eternal. I am the key of life. I am the fluid of life. I am the goddess of energy. I will survive another 4,000 years. I will still be here. My soul feels the cold vigor of those years, making me tremble in the magnitude of those words. To tell the story in generational waves as we repeat the cycles of life and death, and the river still flows. Coming back into my body, I sit by the Rio Grande, run my fingers across the water, feel the connection between the Nile River and the Rio Grande, in essence of a river's flow. When I first got back from Egypt, of course, one of the first things I wanted to do was go hiking and sit by a river. And one of my favorite places is in the Jemez Mountains of New Mexico and along the Jemez River. So I was walking through the Ponderosa pine forest and thinking about Egypt at the same time. And this came to me as I was walking. It's called Hieroglyphics in Butterscotch. I drink from a cup with your imprint. I ask the goddess on the mountain if you are real. She said, swallow and digest the love of angels swelling your belly. Your angel wings will grow. I take a sip and smile like the camels in my dreamboat. I'm instantly transferred to Egypt. I hug the walls of hieroglyphics in Ramesses II temple at Abu Simbel and feel 1,000 moans call my name. I close my eyes and hug a ponderosa tree, smell butterscotch and vanilla bark. A New Mexico mountain massages my soul. The next piece in this section is called Waking Dream. I did a lot of daydreaming about Egypt when I got back home from the trip. But I also did some daydreaming about home when I was riding on the yacht, the Aida. So it was back and forth. That's why I named it Shape Shifting. Waking Dream. I hear your voice on the inner planes. It massages my soul with your love potions. I release my love in the wind. You catch it in the center of your heart. There on the deck of Aida, I see you swimming in the Nile River. The blue water embraces your body. You are such a tease, and I cannot swim. I lay my head back on the deck chair, close my eyes, imagine myself floating with you in the river. I know I am flirting in a waking dream, cloud surfing above the river, watching us float downstream. New Mexico blesses me with sassy clouds, allows me to surf on fluffy trails, climb white mountains, and hug clouds above the desert sand. Cloud surfing is a remarkable experience, shape-shifting between the Egyptian desert and New Mexico's enchanted land. I float in gratitude on the waves of clouds. And then we go back to Egypt. And one of the most amazing sights in terms of temples in Egypt is Abu Simbel. Abu Simbel is the temple of Ramesses II, one of the most powerful pharaohs of that time, thousands of years ago. And he had a seriously big ego because his statures were humongous. And I am not a small woman. And I felt small standing just against his leg. So when I got back home, I started writing a piece that starts out at home and I end up back on the Nile visiting the temple. It's called Abu Simbel Intrusion. Night frost brings the soothing balm of light and sound rippling past camp. Sleepy eyes fold, dreams come and escort you in the secret garden. Here you may sit in peace, absorb the wisdom of violets, paintbrush, and daisies. You may bow in reverence to a mushroom's artistic expression. Now feel the music of a wild blade of grass sink close to your legs. You were born to taste beauty and hold space for the broken. Come hither and sleep with me. But I cannot sleep with you, dear nature, for the pool of the river Nile is teasing me, and the temple of Abu Simbel calls my name. After 3,000 years, his ego still echoes in the desert wind. 100 wives have stood at his foot and cursed his hand against the breast. How many times have you come back here, Ramesses II, in the past 3,000 years and longed to assert your authority on the sacred feminine? You dominate the landscape, rising from the sand at Luxor. Your ego explodes at the Luxor temple. The sheer size of your monuments raises the question about your worship of deities. Were you really paying tribute to Amun Ra? Cannot sleep with nature tonight. Your hold is too tight. Let go, Ramesses. Let go. And the last piece I'll read in this section is called Egyptian Portal. You slip behind bushes sheltering my garden. The soil speaks to you in an ancient dialect. A powerful vibration makes your legs tremble and lose the ability to hold you up. Your mouth tries to ask, who speaks to you with such gentle but forceful authority and hold your ears prisoner here and now? You want to back away from the vibrations. You find your body is frozen in the moment. Surrender is the only option, and you just listen. You think of a song. This is your house, a holy house of prayer where the seeker cometh before the sacred land of nature. Knees bend in humility and receive the wisdom pulsating from earth. A reminder, even in ancient Egypt, we are simply souls passing through. May we learn to walk with grace, gratitude, compassion, and love. And then I get away from, in the third section of this book, I get away from visiting the various temples and tombs and other sites around the countryside and just enjoy being on the Aida, which is the yacht, and spending time with my muse speaking to me. And I'll read a few pieces from that section. The first piece is called Scream into the Silence. Entwined in the sound of your voice, I am trapped. I hug a tree for life and try not to drown in your hold. My body tries to take leave of you. My mind and soul do not want to let go. I breathe out flowers, and flowers bloom around me. You ambush me with the sound floating from your tongue. A soothing speakeasy manipulates my senses. Your cold tracks linger in my brain. Word slayer, songs of remembering play in my head. I run through the catacombs of time. You flirt ahead just far enough to keep me chasing your light, lifetime after lifetime. Thoughts of you become a benediction, and winter feels long in the desert as you dance in the sand against a blue nautical sky. My heart skips a beat with each breath. I scream into the silence. The next piece is called Soul Upheaval. Just a thought of you makes me wet with desire. I want to pull my heart out and serve it to you on a gold platter. My soul says, no, you cannot. No one is worthy of such sacrifice. The silent landscape of my brain is sweating with fever, pulsating with fear. Flames of healing lick me red with untouchable love. Do you dare approach? Only those able to walk barefoot in my garden avoid the kiss of the thorn. The petal of the rose wraps the good-hearted in the garden. Thorns bleed the unworthy, bury them deep in darkness. The next piece is called Law of Silence. Silence is a golden treasure chest in the city of subtle wisdom. I still have miles to get there. Those single silent coins tease me. I reflect on the law of silence, and the chatter of self talk becomes a wave of calmness. I am learning to remain still in the long lean into maturity. I have traveled the noisy road, learned soft surrender. The beauty of that concept opens me to join the silence of the light shining through. I discover the remedy for healing resides within me. Never alone again. I come from the womb of love, open to embrace a soaring heart riding on wind-battered time. The sacred dead rest beneath sand and rub my eyes on bygone ages. I am drunk on ancient water rolling over my breast. My bones are a temple of love that rose from the pure elixir of the Nile. I bathe in sacred water and wait for you to write hieroglyphics of love on the walls of my body and massage my bloodstream. I want to join my flow to yours forever, float in the essence of pure light. Never leave me alone again. And I want to intercede at this point and say that all of these poems were written while I was meditating in the morning, sitting on the Nile River, sitting on the yacht on the Nile River as we were beginning to float downstream. And sometimes I would pause in the middle of something and end up picking it back up later. But pretty much most of the poems were written while I was engaging in the beauty and just absolute magnificent solitude of the early morning ride on the yacht down the river. And it was absolutely amazing. And I'll read one more piece from that section. Take your eyes to the tears, laundry. Wash them well. Go back on deck. See the world in a new light. Blood streams down your face. I want to touch you, but no, I cannot expose what is forbidden. You are an image of me in the window of my past lives floating down the Nile. The marriage of water and light pulls me close to the river. I want to touch the purity in that union, but cannot bear to embrace it. The memory is too painful. Perhaps next time when the scar feels less tender. My desires stand in shadows, stoking fires, burning inside me, working to expand my fears. Now I understand the gift of stubbornness. I shall not be ruled by fear. Goddess of the river smiles as we ride wind currents, celebrating my insight. At this point, does anybody have any questions? I would be happy to answer them. Give me a chance to break from reading. I'm generally not much of a talker about my poetry, so this is a little bit different for me. So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
I jumped on a little bit late, so you might have answered this already, but what inspired, what was the inspiration behind the wanderlust, the zest for travel?
Um, Say that last part again.
What inspired your I guess your travel?
Oh, my desire to travel.
Yes.
Oh,
What
okay.
sparked that? When did that, how did that come about?
Oh, okay. What happened was, I always wanted to go to Egypt when I was a child, okay? Because I was an avid reader, as many writers are, even as a child. And what I read a lot of, believe it or not, was National Geographic because it was available at the public library. And I saw these pictures of Egypt, okay? And I actually saw pictures uh, of temples and tombs, and I even saw, King Tut stuff and everything. And it's just fascinated me to no end. And so that was something that was always on my mind. And of course, I started growing up and I forgot about it, but it was on the back burner. And when I started traveling as an adult, the whole concept of going across the pond or over the seas came back to me again. And I put Egypt high on my agenda to eventually go to Egypt. And I had finally decided to go in 2020. And of course, and I set up, paid to go almost a year and a half ahead of time because it's so popular. And of course, things had not closed down yet for the pandemic. But because of the pandemic, I didn't get to go because the intent was to go for my 70th birthday. And so I was extremely devastated at that point and thinking, wow. But I thought I'm still going to get there. And of course, once things opened up again, the first thing I did was I say to my tour company, yes, I definitely want to be on the next trip out. And so then I got to go in 2022. Um, and it just struck me. I didn't know it was going to hit me so hard that it would have such an impact on me. It was just like a life-changing experience for me to be walking there and walking back in time because I believe in past lives, okay? And I felt like I had been there before. And please forgive me, I have a little sinus congestion today. And I felt like I was walking back in time. And so, like I had actually been there, that I had been one of the queens of that time and age. And I just felt the energy and the rumbling and everything when I would walk into these temples and also the tombs, but even more so the tombs because it was just they were so amazing how they had built them so far beneath the sand. And the sand had preserved them so well that when they dug them up, many of them, not all, uh, a lot of the hieroglyphics and the paintings on the walls and everything was still there and totally intact. Okay. And you look at that in awe and amazement and think, how is this possible? And then you begin to appreciate nature because it was the sand itself, just the sand that preserved these spaces all that time, you know. Um, I hope that gets at your question a little bit.
No,
If not,
it does answer my question. Yes, thank you. Um,
okay.
and that's something that I can relate to a little bit, loving to being a lover of reading and, just how reading just takes you away to faraway places. And then when you actually go and experience it for yourself in real time, in real life, it's really, it's life changing.
Yeah, it is. It makes a difference. And what I have learned, because I have been to 21 countries now, and what I'm learning is that it has expanded my perception about things. It has changed my perception about things because we live in the United States of America and we tend to think that's all there is, because we don't know and we don't know any better. And then we go other places and realize that planet Earth such more, so much more than just the United States, in terms of just the landscapes themselves. I mean, of course, there's different cultures, and I learn a lot there too. But because I'm nature oriented, I am so drawn to the land. And I was just so drawn to the landscape itself, even though I had the wonderful experience of the culture also. And as an aside, I'll mention the fact that actually getting to go to the Nubian village and meet and greet with the Nubians was an amazing experience also, because they are an absolutely beautiful people, you know. I had never seen in my life people so beautiful black. I call them beautiful black velvet,
Mm,
uh, because they were so beautiful, and their skin was like black velvet, you know.
wow.
So that in and of itself, that's why I wrote the one poem about the one Nubian that we were on the boat with. And I actually had a wonderful experience because I told the tour guide, I said, you got to tell him that I'm sitting here looking at him and thinking, I know he's a man, but he's absolutely beautiful. And I want you to tell him that. And the the um the tour guide told him that, and I knew he told him because he started smiling, and of course he said back, "You're beautiful too." But then I said, "Ask him if I can give him a hug," and he said yes.
Oh, that's sweet.
So I gave him a big hug, But yeah, he really was. I mean, and he wasn't the only one, but we were sitting there next to him, and he was telling us stories about the area and everything about the history of the area. So that's why he was on the boat with us on the way over to visit the Temple of Philae, which is the temple of Isis, the goddess Isis. So that was also very amazing. And it had all these little individual amazing experiences, and that's why I tried to capture some of them in the writing, like the young child he was riding his donkey, following us we were on the back of a truck on the way back to the yacht, because the yacht pulled in, and he followed us all the way back, and he was waving and smiling at us. He was so cute. He might have been 12, 13 years old, something like that, but just absolutely gorgeous, and he was having a fine time following us. And so that inspired me. So it was things like that were touching me in a way deeper than usual. Because normally when I travel, I might write one or two poems, but I'm not writing a whole book.
Right.
So that in and of itself said, okay, Egypt has really had an impact, on your life. And I'm so glad. And I am also grateful that I had the experience.
That is good. I love it.
Um,
Stacy has a question in the chat.
okay. Can you talk about your process a little? Okay. You know, I've been asked that question before, and I guess I don't really have a disciplined process, to be honest. It's just that I can get up in the morning, or I might be walking a trail in the woods, and all of a sudden my muse says, sit down and write. And whatever I'm observing or dealing with at that moment, I write about, or whatever is on my mind, I write about, but I don't generally have a specific process. I mean, if I go to a workshop, which I don't do too often, but every now and then you go to a workshop, that's kind of discipline. And they say, we want you to write about this topic or this phrase or whatever, and I'll do that kind of thing. But what I find is I like the free flow better. So I guess in a way, that's kind of my process, and to some extent. I like the free flow better, when my muse speaks to me and I just sit down and write whatever is coming to me. Now, sometimes that's totally chaotic what comes out. And I look at it and say, what is this? What's going on here? And I set it aside and I'll come back to it later. Other times, when the muse comes to me, says, sit down and write, it comes full blown. It's ready. I don't practically don't need to do any editing to it at all, maybe a little tweaking. Now, that of course doesn't happen most of the time. Most of the time it comes out just all over the place. And out of that piece of writing, I may end up with more than one piece, or I may end up with a totally different piece by the time I totally edit it. But that was the spark for that moment. And I'm really stimulated a lot because I love being outside. I love being outdoors. I'm a nature person, and my happy places are places in the woods or sitting by a river, but more certainly a stream that's bubbling. I love that. I could sit all day long. And there's a lot of those in Colorado, southwestern Colorado. When I go up and camp, I like to try to camp by the streams. We call them rivers, here in New Mexico, the streams, because, water is scarce, but it's like bubbling and babbling brooks. And I spend time there. And so I'm always writing I write more when I find that I write more when I'm in Colorado than I do any other place for some reason, because normally I'm sitting by a bubbling stream, small river flowing, making a little bit of what I call lyrical noise. So I guess you could call that my process to some extent, you know, without it being a truly well-defined uh, process. I hope that kind of answers the question.
Hmm.
So, anybody got any more questions? I'll be happy to answer.
Hmm. What legacy would you like to leave with regard to um your poetry journey, as far as, all these years of writing and your inspiration, everything like that? Like, what do you want? What kind of legacy do you want your poetry to leave behind?
Okay. You know, I have thought about that actually, because somebody says, "What is your legacy going to be?" You have asked me in the past, and I said, my legacy will be my writing, the writing that I leave. Since I don't have children or anything like that, because I always feel that if you have children, that's a great legacy. And so my legacy would be my writing. And I was thinking about it one day, and I thought, I would like to be kind of like Emily Dickinson, that 200 years from now, some young'un will pick up something I've written and find inspiration from it. Because that's what happened with me with Emily when the first time I picked up Emily Dickinson. Um, I started reading her and I'm like, wow, I like this. There's just the way she said certain things. It stimulated me at the time. And I wasn't writing too much at that point, but every now and then I'll go and read Emily even now. I mean, I read so many more now, but I think back to that time and think, that would be so cool to have some young pick up your book 200 years from now, and they actually are stimulated by what you wrote, or they are moved by that. That would be just, to me, the greatest thing in the world.
So, kind of along the same lines with me, since I don't have any heirs, you know, and I said this during the New Mexico Poetry Summit. We were at that art studio, and that art gallery rather, and AJ Houston, he was live, and I forgot exactly what the question was, but part of my response was, I want, people 20, 30, 50 years from now to look at what I wrote and understand what was going on during that particular point in time. Because
Yeah.
we're griots, you know what I mean? We are the storytellers. We are the truth tellers. So when people read our work, they're gonna understand, oh snap, that's what was happening, you know.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Somebody said, well, what about now? I said, now is not important to me. I said, sure, there'll be people that might like what I'm writing now, and there are others that won't. I said, well, but what's more invaluable to me, and that's not to put down the present, what's more invaluable to me is that someone, like I keep saying, 200 years down the road, actually picks it up and finds some value, in the words. And the same thing with yours, that they pick it up and read it and find some value in what they're reading in the words that you wrote, say, 200 years prior, or even Stacy, or any other poet, or writer, someone actually pick up that stuff and find something that moves them. And I think we do, because we all probably read different poets from eras a long time ago, because I've read most of them. I started out reading all of the older poets, Longfellow, Yeats, Keats, all of that stuff, before I even got to the contemporary poets, which I did eventually get to those because I needed to. But I found a lot of them to be very stimulating. And that's when I accidentally ran into uh, Rumi and Hafiz, because I'm kind of on a spiritual path. And I was just, in awe of reading them. And I find that even if I'm not reading a lot of poetry at any given point in time, whenever I travel, I always take Rumi and Hafiz with me. Because, if I want to laugh, I want to cry, I want to dance, I want to sing, or whatever, all I have to do is read Hafiz, and I'll be doing one of those. Because his writing is just very amazing and thought provoking. And for me, for Rumi, it's more for reflection and meditation, you know. And that's not to say I don't read others, but those are the ones I take with me when I travel. So I can be sitting by a stream and laughing out loud because I'm reading Hafiz in that moment. And that also helps. I didn't mention that earlier, but they both stimulate my writing also. They stimulate my muse. A lot of times when I'm just not moving on something, I sit and read them, and all of a sudden I'm writing again. So that becomes critically important. Yeah.
All right.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the questions.
Oh, yeah. I like to deep dive. I like to learn more. You know what I mean? We only have but so much time. We only cross paths but so much. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, but I appreciate the questions because it's good to reflect on that. And it also gets me to thinking about it sometimes. If it's sometimes I may not have thought about it, but a lot of times somebody might have asked me before, I may have a different perspective on it, or it makes me think about, well, how do I really feel about that? So I think that's a good thing. So thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Of course. Okay, Miss Stacy said, I would love to hear the title piece of the book.
You want to hear Come Egypt, huh? Okay. Okay. Yes, ma'am. Come Egypt. Let me get to Come Egypt. Come Egypt. All my dreams spill over the waterfall. I watch the blossoms stream down. I see the tombs of gods, goddesses, and pharaohs beckoning my soul to come home. I hear singing in the wind. Come Egypt, come home. I left no trace of the last trail I took before translation. Here I stand today with flutters in my ears. Come Egypt, come home. I tiptoe in the Egyptian desert, gently rest my boots on the ground, bow my head with respect and awe to the wondrous carvings from the sand calling my name. Come Egypt, come home. I am a goddess with angel wings, shaking sand off my feathers as I rise, licking the sand from my hands. Time is calling. Come, Egypt, come home. I have trekked around the sun 4,000 times plus one, and I hear a voice messaging my soul. Come, Egypt, come home. Nubians dance with an urgency that grabs my attention. Drums of harmony play a homecoming ritual in my name, shouting out loud, Come Egypt, come home. I walk in the tomb of Ramesses III, and the hieroglyphics pull at my heart. Resistance is not an option when the stimulus is so strong. Come Egypt, come home. Your mummy is no longer usable. It crumbles in the atmosphere. You must embrace a new body to bind your soul. Come, Egypt, come home. Cloud clusters cry in my name, flow into my river of radiance. Drenched in your tears, my heart melts in a wave of love. Come, Egypt, come home. The river sings an ode to joy through the millennia. Here we stand on the deck of an Egyptian yacht listening. Come, Egypt, come home. Inhale the wind of the morning river, fold arms around the warmth of hoodies. The morning chill calls the morning brew to assist the sunrise in song. Come, Egypt, come home. Gratitude floats on the deck of Aida for the blessing of this ancient experience. Solitude opens its wings to first light in the delight of the river's flow. The sound current streams. Come, Egypt, come home. The first sighting of morning, a water buffalo stands at the edge of the river, staring, slowly chewing its morning mulch. I can feel the song in its heart. Come, Egypt, come home. Rose petals etched with the names of beloveds rise from the sand. I cannot get out of my dreams. Walking meditations along the Nile River, vibrations in the breeze enfold me. Come, Egypt, come home. When evening bends the light rays across the river, the water whispers just beneath the surface. Come, Egypt, come home. The river's musical surge makes me breathe deep in my soul. My ears twinkle like stars, overflowing with energy. I hear, come, Egypt, come home. I bow in reverence at the water's edge. A blanket of earth supports this river as it stumbles over words to spell grace. Come, Egypt, come home. A colored girl's muse rises from its ashes, flies above the river, and speaks in the tongue of the goddess. Come, Egypt, come home. She opens her mouth wide. The breakfast of her tongue sings without resistance. Come, Egypt, come home. Your legs tremble under the weight of your visions. Your heart is in overdrive. Someone, please take my hand. Come, Egypt, come home. How can this be such a powerful plea after 4,000 plus years? I know not the voice singing for me, but I feel the purity and innocence of the call from the temple walls. Come, Egypt, come home. Which one of you, standing here with me, stain these temple walls with life colors, hear the call like a prayer? Come, Egypt, come home. Come, Egypt, come home.
Teresa, thank you so much. I cannot think of a more beautiful beginning for this show, and I cannot think of a lovelier end to your segment. Um, it was perfect, and
Thank you so much. Thank
it
you.
was
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you so much, Jennifer, for coming through. I appreciate that, both of you. Uh,
Absolutely.
and I
it
hope
was
that this will become a successful venue on a monthly
as
basis for many, many more Tesoro sisters as we
as
move
long
forward.
as we have people who are as brilliant what they do as you are, then that will not be a problem.
Thank you.
Again,
Thank you
thank
so
you
much.
so so much. This was absolutely beautiful. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Teresa Gallion. Buy the book. It will change your life. Buy Come Egypt will change your life. Again, Teresa, thank you so much. And we are out.